Someday, my dear STEM Legend learners, how are you? Welcome to another adventurous and educational episode for Quarter 3 here in Senior High Tech TV. I feel so blessed that you are all here and ready for another learning journey today. I am Teacher Ernest, and together, let us discover life in the exciting world of biology. If you are ready to learn, please behave, listen, and take note of the important concepts of our lesson for today.
It's trivia time!
What did Charles Darwin discover on the Beagle voyage?
His observations led him to his famous theory of natural selection. According to Darwin's theory, variations within a species occur randomly, and the survival or extinction of an organism is determined by its ability to adapt to its environment.
Are you excited for another wonderful biological science adventure? Let's start! Before we begin, let's play a game entitled Fix the Word. Here are the mechanics of the game. I will show you a jumbled letters, and with it is its definition. You are given 5 seconds to arrange the jumbled letters. Type down your answers in the comment section below.
Are you ready? Let's go! Number 1. It consists of organisms of the same species that live in the same area. Very good. The correct answer is population. Number 2. It refers to the changes in alleles within a population over time. Very good. The correct answer is evolution. Number 3. It is a source of new alleles in a population. You're right. The correct answer is mutation. Number 4. It is the flow of alleles in and out of a population resulting from the migration of individuals or gametes. If your answer is gene flow, then you are correct. And number 5, it is another way a population's alleles frequencies can change, which is simply the effect of chance. Absolutely. The correct answer is genetic drift.
Let us discuss this further, so stay focused and don't go away.
Our lesson for today is all about mechanisms that produce change in populations. And for the learning competency, explain the mechanisms that produce change in populations from generation to generation, such as artificial selection, natural selection, genetic drift, mutation, and recombination. At the end of the lesson, you are expected to define evolution, differentiate population and population genetics, and describe the mechanisms that produce change in populations from generation to generations, which are artificial selection, natural selection, genetic drift, mutation, and recombination.
You learned in the previous lesson that life on Earth changes through time. Remember that without change, there will be no variations in the species. Thus, no evolution to occur. According to Charles Darwin, heritable variations are needed for evolution to occur. However, this principle could not be fully understood until such time that Mendel's law of genetics were discovered in the early 1900s. We now know that variations of traits are heritable. These variations are determined by different alleles. The changes in alleles within a population over time is now called evolution. Does this mean individuals do evolve?
Individuals do not evolve. Their genes do not change over time. The unit of evolution is the population. A population consists of organisms of the same species that live in the same area. In terms of evolution, the population is assumed to be a relatively closed group. This means that most mating takes place within the population. The science that focuses on evolution within populations is population genetics. It is a combination of evolutionary theory and Mendelian genetics. According to the founding principle of population genetics, called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, if a population meets certain conditions, it will be in equilibrium. These conditions are no mutation, no migration, very large population size, random mating, and no natural selection, according to CK12 org in 2014. When one of these conditions is not met, equilibrium is disturbed and the change may occur. Indeed, those conditions that cause equilibrium disruption are the driving forces of evolution. There are four forces or mechanisms of evolution. These are natural selection, mutation, genetic drift, and gene flow or migration, according to Maria Elena Zabascot-Yamzon in 2015.
Here are the mechanisms of evolution. Number 1 is natural selection. According to Darwin, nature or the environment selects organisms with traits that allow them to survive in particular environments. Number 1, there are more individuals that are produced than to be sustained by a particular environment. This leads to competition for limited resources. Number 2, there is variation within a population. Genetic mutation provides variation of traits. Number 3, individuals with favorable traits that provide an advantage for survival will have an edge in this competition. And number 4, these individuals, as a result, are more likely to reproduce than those that do not possess. And number 4, these individuals, as a result, are more likely to reproduce than those that do not possess these traits.
For example, birds in different habitats such as penguins living in an extremely cold conditions or bats that use large ears for echolocation or hummingbirds with long tongues to reach the nectar at the base of blooms and their ability to hover while sipping the nectar. Alleles are expressed in a phenotype depending on the environmental conditions. The phenotype confers an advantage or disadvantage to the individual with the phenotype relative to the other phenotypes in the population. If it is an advantage, then the individual will likely to have more offspring than individuals with the other phenotypes. And this will mean that the allele behind the phenotype will have greater representation in the next generation. If conditions remain the same, those offspring which are carrying the same allele will also benefit. Over time, the allele will increase in frequency in the population.
Number 2 is mutation. Mutation is the source of new alleles in a population. Mutation is a change in the DNA sequence of the gene. A mutation can change one allele into another, but the net effect is a change in frequency.
The change in frequency resulting from mutation is small, so its effect on evolution is small unless it interacts with one of the other factors, such as selection. A mutation may produce an allele that is selected against, selected for, or selectively neutral. Harmful mutations are removed from the population by selection and will generally only be found in very low frequencies equal to the mutation rate. Beneficial mutations will spread through the population through selection, although that initial spread is slow. Whether or not a mutation is beneficial or harmful is determined whether it helps an organism survive to sexual maturity and reproduce. It should be noted that mutation is the ultimate source of genetic variation in all populations, new alleles, and therefore new genetic variations arise through mutation.
Number 3 is genetic drift. Another way a population's allele frequencies can change is genetic drift, which is simply the effect of chance. Genetic drift is most important in small populations. Drift would be completely absent in a population with infinite individuals, but of course, no population is this large.
Genetic drift occurs because the alleles in an offspring generation are a random sample of the alleles in the parent generation. Alleles may or may not make it into the next generation due to chance events including mortality of an individual, events affecting finding a mate, and even the events affecting which gametes end up in fertilizations.
And number 4 is gene flow. Another important evolutionary force is gene flow, or the flow of alleles in and out of a population, resulting from the migration of individuals or gametes.
While some populations are fairly stable, others experience more flux. Many plants, for example, send their seeds far and wide by wind or in the guts of animals. These seeds may introduce alleles common in the source population to new population in which they are rare.
In summary, there are 4 factors that can change the allele frequencies of a population. Natural selection works by selecting for alleles that confer beneficial traits or behaviors, while selecting against those for deleterious qualities. Mutations introduce new alleles into a population. Genetic drift stems for the chance occurrence that some individuals have more offspring than others as a result in changes in allele frequencies that are random in direction. When individuals leave or join the population, allele frequencies can change as a result of gene flow. Now, we have already discovered the mechanisms that produce change in populations. If you really understood our lesson, let us evaluate your understanding by answering this multiple choice activity. choose the correct answer from each question. Bring up your pen and quiz notebook. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Number 1. The unit of evolution is called blank. Letter A, alleles. Letter B, genes. Letter C, population. And letter D, trait. You're right. The correct answer is letter C, population. Number 2. What is the best definition of evolution? Letter A, survival of the fittest. Letter B, an adaptation of organism to its environment. Letter C, a process of change in an organism over a period of time. And letter D, an abrupt replacement of one organism over a period of time. Very good. The correct answer is letter C, a process of change in an organism over a period of time. Number 3. Which of the following forces or mechanisms of evolution introduces new alleles into a population? Letter A, genetic drift. Letter B, gene flow. Letter C, mutation. And letter D, natural selection. If your answer is C, mutation, then you are correct. Number 4. Darwin's explanation of the way in which evolution occurs is that letter A, God determines which species should evolve. Letter B, those traits used more often persist change. Letter C, certain species have more built-in plans of evolution. And letter D, progressive adaptations enable one species to leave more offspring. If your answer is letter D, progressive adaptations enable one species to leave more offspring, then you are correct. And number 5. Which of the following descriptions best define successful adaptation? Letter A, evolving new traits. Letter B, producing offspring. Letter C, an increase in fitness. And letter D, moving to a new location. Absolutely. The correct answer is letter B, producing more offspring.
To sum up, it is conceivable that in such context, the mechanisms underlying behavior may be evolutionary importance. Because mechanisms can affect the probabilities with which phenotypes arise and hence the likelihood of alternative evolutionary trajectories. Congratulations, my dear STEM Legend learners! I hope that you learned a lot today. Once again, I am your energetic teacher saying, eagerness to learn will lead you in the fulfillment of your dreams. See you in the next episode.